Hello and welcome to another LifterLMS update. We're coming at you today with version 2.2. Today is March 4th, 2016. I'm here with Thomas, and we're going to go over what's new, what's happening. This is a big release. There's a lot packed inside of it. And Thomas is going to take us on a tour, and I'm just looking over the changelog, which you can see at lifterlms.com/roadmap. It's also a text file that's inside, or a markdown file that's inside the plugin itself. So you can always access this changelog, this list of things that are new in this version, from the product roadmap page and also from the changelog file inside the plugin itself. So at the top, Thomas, we've got translations, and a bunch has happened there. But for the uninitiated, what is a translation in WordPress?
So WordPress has a handful of translation functions. It's very, very good at making translations easy, as long as the code bases that you're using are also good at adhering to WordPress's best practices. We've gotten, in the past couple of weeks since the release of LifterLMS 2.0, a lot of updates that were missing a lot of strings in LifterLMS that are untranslatable. So we're not finished by any means, but we've gone through and we've updated the pot files that kind of enable translators to translate, and updated that so that all the new things, features like some of the coupons and some of the voucher stuff that have been added more recently, we forgot to update our pot file to include the translations for those areas. But anyway, the pot file almost doubled in size, so there's a lot of new translatable strings. We also have some new collaborators in the past couple of weeks that are working with us. We have a team of German web developers that are helping to translate LifterLMS, so that should be coming who knows when. I don't have a timeline from them. But anyway, so we've had a lot of outreach from the community about translation, and we're trying to make it easier. So we've updated our pot file, and we've also made including translations a little bit easier. This will get a little bit technical, but we'll add into the notes a reference article on how to use the new translation functions. Basically, it'll make it so that when you're trying to load a translation file, you don't have to drop it into LifterLMS itself. You could drop it into your WordPress language directly, language directory. And we'll look for it there as well. That way, if you're doing non-standard languages, or if you're translating just the plugin and not the core or something like that, it's a little bit easier to do that and then not lose your translation every time you click the update button on LifterLMS. So we're really looking to you as the community. We're primarily English speaking. I don't know any other languages, so I'm not going to actually write the translations. But we love that WordPress can reach all parts of the globe, and we want to make LifterLMS reach all parts of the globe too. So if you're interested in translating, please reach out to us. If you're interested in contributing, or if you find any things that we're missing, let us know. Just submit a little note either in the forums or through our contact form, and we'll make sure to try to get those things added as soon as possible.
That's awesome. Well, I'm also seeing here some improvements to the certificate background images. And before you tell us about that, Thomas, just so everybody knows, this just happened this week. LifterLMS Pro users, we now give you 6 achievement packs and certificate backgrounds. So you have some graphic elements you can work with to add badges to your courses, and also some different certificate backgrounds that you could use to go with your course. So if you're a LifterLMS Pro customer, you now have access to those graphic design assets. But onto the certificates, what's new with them? What was wrong with them, and what's new with them?
So we had a couple issues where certain browsers, most major browsers, we'll be honest here, couldn't actually print our printable certificates. This has to do with the way we programmed it. We were using background images to put the certificate background behind the content. Looks great on screen. If you try to export a PDF, it's fine. As soon as you actually physically print that thing, you get a blank piece of paper, which was pretty unfortunate. So we refactored, we rewrote the certificate functions around background images. We've made it a little bit more developer friendly. We've added a bunch of new filters. I think a couple of actions too. All that stuff is documented in our documented portal. Again, you could grab links to this stuff directly out of the changelog, and I'm sure we could throw some of the links right into the the blog post here as well. But take a look at all that stuff. And the major update is actually just kind of creating an interface around this stuff. It's great to have filters. It's great to make it accessible to developers. And I'm just going to demo some of that right now. This used to be called emails. We've renamed it engagement, so that's a small update. But it used to only have email things, and now we're going to start adding settings for other engagements. But down here, you can actually define the size of your background image. So the default LifterLMS placeholder, and also the assets that you pro subscribers are going to get that Chris just mentioned, default to 800 by 616 pixels. Now that's the size we picked. It kind of looks good for a certificate. It's nice in landscape and it works well. But in the past, we've had issues where folks wanted to do retina sized images, and they couldn't do that because of the way we had programmed the certificate background image to work. So this will allow you to define the size of your certificate background image, and we leverage the WordPress image size API so that when you then upload an image, WordPress will automatically crop that for you to those specific sizes and then render it that size on screen. So we've set it to the default 800 by 616. You guys can come here and change that. And we've also just put a little note here. And again, there's some documentation around this. But since we're using the WordPress image size API, any images you already have uploaded, you'll need to use the Regenerate Your Thumbnails plugin to rebuild those thumbnails to be the correct size that you have defined here. So if you ever go through or you change any of these sizes, you'll want to regenerate your thumbnails so that the correct size gets referenced on screen. And then finally, for everybody who's upgrading from LifterLMS 2.1, I think it's 2.1.1, or any older versions of LifterLMS, we're going to enable this legacy compatibility by default for you. Previously, what we did is that this size, 800 by 616, got determined on screen based on the size of your image. So if you uploaded a certificate image that was, say, 3,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels, that's how big it would render. So now with the new settings we have, we didn't want to break your existing certificates because maybe you like them that size. Maybe that's the way you want it. Some people didn't like the way we were doing it. Some people probably didn't even realize it was an issue. And we don't want to break that for you. So by default, this legacy compatibility will be enabled, which basically means we're going to be ignoring whatever settings you put in here. So if you want to continue using the legacy compatibility, go ahead. We will eventually probably deprecate that, but that's going to be a long time down the road, and we'll obviously notify you and give you upgrading details. For any new LifterLMS customers, we feel that, or LifterLMS users rather, that the new version is better. So when you install this fresh, this legacy certificate image size will be disabled by default. And then you won't really need to worry about it. You don't need to do anything. And you could just keep going. You could always opt out of it if you wanted, even if you are a new customer, just by checking the box. Again, there's some write-ups on all this stuff with a little bit more details, and all the developer documentation. We'll have links for all that stuff for you.
That's awesome. Well, let me ask you a question, Thomas. Some of our users are not very technical, or they're kind of new to WordPress. So when it says that there's new filters available to make customizing the certificate template easier, what does that mean, or what does that let us know that is possible that we could ask our developer to do?
Yeah, so let's see, we have a bunch of filters. Essentially what a filter does is it's a piece of code, and these are very, very prevalent in WordPress. You might not know it as a less technical person, but just about everything you see on screen on a WordPress website is run through some kind of filter or generated by what's called an action hook. So just specifically for the certificate background filters that we've created, you could override, for example, so say your default settings are 16 or 800 by 616, but you're very technical, you're a developer, and you say, you know what, when I print this, I want it to print at a higher resolution. So I want to use 2 times the size, and I want to print it at, what's that, 1600? I'm going to do math on the spot here, by 616. So that'd be 1600 by 1232 or something like that. So you want to double the size. So you could actually do that using filters, where you could write a filter that filters can be added to a custom plugin, to your themes functions file, or anything like that. It's just a piece of PHP code. And you could write that so that when the conditions are matched, that it's a print document, or we're reviewing this in printing mode, you could output a larger image. That's one example. Another example is that we have a default LifterLMS background image here. Let me get to one of these. What are we talking about? We're talking about certificates. So if we come here on the admin panel and we go take a look at a certificate, this is the default LifterLMS placeholder image. It says LifterLMS on it. It's just a plain simple. It doesn't look bad, but it might not be ideal for you. You might want to use a different background image for whatever reason. Maybe you're a web developer and you want to not brand it as LifterLMS. You want to put your learning management system on there, whatever you want to do, whatever reason. You could override that with a filter. So that way, when no image is uploaded and there's a certificate, you could use that. Or maybe for whatever reason you want to use a different certificate than the certificate you've uploaded because you're into confusing your clients, and you want them to upload something here but see something else on screen. You could do that with a filter. So these are basically just settings that developers can hook into, and they're a little bit more complicated than settings, but they allow you to be a lot more complicated. You can come up with just about any scenario, and usually you can fulfill that need. If there's not already a setting on the admin panel, you could do that through an action or a filter.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for clarifying that. I'd also like to give a shout out and a thank you to Sean from WP 101. He wrote a blog post recently about his experience with switching over to LifterLMS. And he also helped identify so a couple things that we should look at with our sale functionality. So next on the changelog, we have course and membership pricing and sales updates. So what happened over there?
Yeah, so we the further we dug into it, the further we realized that we had some very, very complicated logic around sale prices, and it wasn't working entirely correctly. The first issue we found was if you were creating a course and you were putting it on sale, we'll just go and we'll do that. I'll skip the little quick setup. But if we determined that we wanted to put this course on sale, you couldn't create a sale unless you had a sale price, a start date, and an end date. And that start date had to be either today or in the past, and that sale price date either had to be tomorrow and in the future. Very rigid settings, and it didn't allow for something like, I want to run a sale indefinitely with no start or end date, and I'll come back as the administrator and physically disable the sale when it's finished. So we had a lot of logic, and it actually, as it turns out, sometimes web developers over-engineer things. I'm guilty of it, and I think any developers listening to this podcast, if you're honest, you've over-engineered something in your life. So it was just a little bit over-engineered. It felt like a bug, and as a web developer, I always like to clarify, well, it's not a bug, that's intended behavior, which is usually just code for I screwed up and I didn't think about all the scenarios that I should have thought about. But anyway, so we rewrote all that stuff, and now sales have a lot of different, a lot more robust functionality where all you need for a sale is to turn the sale on and to put a price in here. Mm-hmm. Now your course is on sale, and programmatically will determine whether or not your sale meets the criteria of the start and end date. So for example, if you, like I said before, want to run a sale indefinitely with no start and end date, you can do that. As long as this is checked and a price is here, we'll assume you're on sale. We're not going to worry about what your dates are. And both of these are now optional. So if you put a sale, create a sale with no start date and an end date, as soon as that end date passes, we're automatically going to revert back to your original single payment price here, which let's say is $95. If you put an end date, so that's an end date, no start date, you could put a start date and no end date. So let's say today is March 4th, and I say, you know what, starting March 16th, I want to start a sale. I can put that sale date on with no end date, or I could put a sale date into the future with an end date. So let's say we want to run that sale from March 16th until March 20th. We can do that too. So now it kind of works as it's expected to work when you look at the interface rather than how it worked programmatically. So we've just kind of cleaned that stuff up, made it a little bit better, a little easier to use. And in addition to all that, we kind of optimized a lot of the underlying functions that happen behind the scenes to make all that possible. Refactored our product class a little bit, make it a little bit easier to read for developers who want to extend it, cleaned up a couple filters, added a couple actions. And then we also refactored the templates that output all this stuff. So as a user, you're going to see exactly what you're used to seeing. It's just going to function a little bit better and make it a little bit easier to develop off the back end of. And the final thing around the sale price is that we received numerous complaints that the size of the price was bigger than the size of the title. So for some reason I can't remember what we were thinking, we made the sale, the actual physical price element a lot bigger than what most themes would use for the title of the course or the membership. So this element is an H2 and the price element was an H4, and we had our H4 set larger than most H2s were. So we've deleted that inflated font size. It gets a little bit smaller. If you don't like our decision to delete that, you can very easily add some custom CSS to boil it back up to its original size or its previous size. But we've had a lot more people complaining about the size than people not complaining about the size. Although now, as I say that, you wouldn't complain about it if you liked it. So let us know if you're unhappy, and I could throw a little code snippet into the thing too to let you know how to get it back to its previous state if you're not happy with our change.
That's awesome.
But I think that's all the stuff around the membership and course sales prices.
Very cool. Well, while we're talking about sales here, we had some changes in how the coupons worked. So
that's correct.
What's new over there?
Yeah, so let me just grab a coupon so I can demo this. I should have had it on my clipboard previously, but we'll just make a quick little coupon here. We'll call it tester coupon. So there's a couple of validation things. One of them is that percentage-based coupons can no longer be created with a value larger than 100%. So you can't create a 105% off coupon and pay your customers to take the course, which actually it would have never done that, but it looked like it did. It was a confusing user experience. So we cleaned that up, but let's just do like a 50% off coupon here and publish this, and we'll go over here. One issue that was identified, again, I'm going to claim this was not a bug. The function never got built. But you couldn't remove a coupon once you applied it. So, which is that you can now remove a coupon. So if you see we applied this coupon, we have 50% off. We can now remove that coupon.
I see at the bottom of the changelog here, we have a bunch of syntax and grammar stuff going on. What's that all about?
So just like anything, one of the things we're working on LifterLMS is just kind of improving the quality of our code base and the quality of our language. Every now and then you guys ping us and say, hey, you spelled X wrong. And we're guilty of not proofreading. That's something that doesn't really happen when you're writing this sentence right here, for example. Nobody ever thinks to proofread it, although we should. So we've cleaned up a lot of grammar where we just spelled things wrong. There's a bunch of them. And then a syntactical error is the programmatic version of a grammatical error, where we maybe miss a comma or a semicolon, we spell a variable name wrong or something like that. And PHP will pick that up as a syntactical error. A lot of these result in what's called a PHP warning, which generally you'll never see, you'll never know about. PHP is pretty intelligent sometimes with certain errors where it can figure out what you're trying to do, and the code doesn't break. So we fixed a lot of those. That usually comes in the form of a variable not being defined correctly, where we use something before it was defined, or we never define something, or we define something that's never used, or something along those lines. And you don't have to exactly understand all the ins and outs of that, but that's what we mean by syntactical errors. And they'll kind of just make your error log a little bit shorter. Now, what you do want to be concerned about is PHP errors. We talk about these from time to time, and we're guilty of them like any web developer is. They'll actually cause your website to break. So chances are, if you have a white screen, it's caused by a PHP error. A lot of them are generally pretty easy to click, and a lot of them result from conflicts with other themes and other plugins. So if you ever encounter those, I'm really trying hard to get people to understand what a white screen is and how it's actually generally, even though it's kind of a big deal, they're usually really easy to resolve. But we're blind. You're blind. You're like, my screen is white. I don't know what to do. We're blind because you're like, hey, my screen is white. We're like, well, I don't know what to do either. So I've written up a little thing. Again, we'll provide a link to this in the blog post on how to help us debug a white screen, because we're as blind as you are when it comes to a white screen unless we have an error message. And 9 times out of 10, if you throw me an error message, we could get that resolved in a matter of moments. It's usually pretty simple. It's generally a known issue or a conflict with another theme or plugin, like I said, which are sometimes unavoidable in the WordPress space. But That's a little bit of a ramble, Chris, but does that answer your question?
That does. And I see at the bottom of the changelog, we have some additional other updates to which are, I'm guessing, are just small tweaks and whatnot that needed.
Yeah, just a lot of small. We did some just changes, some CSS fixes in various places on the admin panel. A lot of things that didn't necessarily cause errors or updates, but just kind of small things. Didn't drop into any one of those exciting categories that we just talked about. But they're still worth mentioning. We're not going to go through each one of them here because you guys have more exciting and interesting things to do, and I know Chris does. I don't, but but you can read through them. They're in the changelog in the places Chris already noted, so you can check all that stuff out just if you're interested.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for all that, Thomas. And I hope everybody enjoys LifterLMS 2.2 and go ahead and update your plugin. And check out LifterLMS Pro and the new graphic design assets in there for you to add badges or more certificate backgrounds. Now that we've got certificates working even better, might be a good time to kind of improve your certificates and add custom design there.